And welcome to all of our listeners and viewers around the country and around the world. Iran goes to the polls today following an acrimonious election campaign that has polarized the country between the incumbent President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and 3 opposition candidates. A record turnout is expected for this presidential election, and the enormous mobilization generated by some of the candidates has been described as unseen since the early days of the Iranian Revolution. The race is largely between President Ahmadinejad and reformist candidate Mir Hossein Mousavi. The other 2 candidates are reformist cleric Mehdi Karoubi and conservative former Revolutionary Guard Commander Mohsen Rezai. The candidate who gets more than 50% of the vote becomes president. Results are expected on Saturday, and experts predict a tight race and a possible victory for Mousavi, who is extremely popular among young voters. Tens of thousands of Iranians took to the streets in recent weeks, campaigning for their candidate of choice and sometimes clashing with supporters of rival candidates.
I definitely vote to Mr. Mir Hossein Mousavi because he's going to come and change this horrible situation, this horrible condition, because we are in a situation that we are going to lose everything.
He's done so much. He has brought us to the attention of the region. He has brought us to the attention of the world. Nobody knew Iran. When Obama makes a bid to Iran, when he respects Iran, that's something Ahmadinejad is responsible for. That's why we will vote for him.
In these elections, I want to vote for someone who's here to defend the rights of the people. He's here to blend himself with the youth of our nation. Our country is very young. We will vote for someone who is like us and can understand us, someone who can give us the freedom we seek. Be certain that based on the intelligence of the youth, Mousavi will win the vote.
Well, to find out more about the major 4 candidates and to get a sense of why so many Iranians, particularly young people, have been mobilized to participate in the election, we're joined now by Trita Parsi from Washington, D.C., founder and president of the National Iranian American Council, author of Treacherous Alliance, The Secret Dealings of Iran, Israel, and the United States. Trita Parsi, welcome to Democracy Now! Why don't you go through the leading candidates, beginning with the president of Iran, and talk about who they are?
Well, I think by now a lot of people know who Mahmoud Ahmadinejad is. He's someone that is pretty hardline, who has shown himself to be quite uncompromising both on domestic policies as well as on some of the international issues that Iran is faced with. Mousavi, Mir Hossein Mousavi, is someone that the outside world knows very little about because for the last 20 years he's been out of the public eye. He was a prime minister during the 1980s, during the Iraq-Iran war, and he's been credited for having been a very efficient manager of the war economy. And as a result, someone that the reformists have been eager to bring back into politics, and this time around they have succeeded in doing so. Back in the 1980s, he tended to have a very leftist worldview, and some people in the United States have been concerned about that, not knowing whether he would be more open to negotiations with the United States than Ahmadinejad would be. Then you have Mehdi Karoubi, the former Speaker of the Parliament, who's probably the most reform-minded candidate of all the different candidates. He is not someone that is terribly charismatic, but he has had a very long life in politics and is a rather known quantity for the Iranian public. He did receive a significant amount of votes in the last elections in 2005. And many people argue that he actually got more votes than Ahmadinejad in that round, but that because of cheating, Ahmadinejad was in the runoff instead of Karoubi. Finally, you have General Mohsen Rezai, a former head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who is known to be a conservative, but on foreign policy matters, he's proven himself to be rather pragmatic. And throughout the Bush administration years, he actually came out with a few proposals hoping to see a better relationship between the United States and Iran. What's interesting with his candidacy is that he is a conservative, yet he is equally opposed to Ahmadinejad, turning Ahmadinejad almost into an Iranian George Bush, a person that has managed to turn even conservatives against him.
Ahmadinejad has taken the unusual step for Iranian politics of personally attacking some of the leaders, questioning some of his opponents, questioning whether some of them had not enriched themselves previously. And what about Mousavi's wife as well, who the chancellor of the university?
Exactly, and I think in many ways it has backfired on him. He has accused several of the very, very top people in the Iranian elite of corruption and having enriched themselves. And reality is that he's probably right, at least to some extent. And a lot of people that already support Ahmadinejad view his courage in that sense of being able to go on national TV and make these accusations. So with them, it has fared pretty well. But what he's also done is that he has mobilized people against him in a fashion that he may not have thought that he would, particularly when it came to his personal attacks against the wife of Mir Hossein Mousavi in one of the televised debates, in which he accused her of having cheated her way into a PhD program. I think what happened after that is that a lot of people who did not vote in 2005 and who were probably not planning to vote in this election decided that they will actually go out and vote. So in that sense, Ahmadinejad mobilized his enemies in a way that he did not foresee.
And the young people.
Which is primarily the young people. The young people who sat out the elections last time around because they didn't feel that they had a real choice. And many of them felt the same way up until just a few weeks ago.
Well, many Iranian Americans are also voting today from nearly 40 polling locations across the United States. Last Saturday night, I saw you, Trita Parsi, along with a number of Iranian Americans at the National Iranian American Council meeting in New York. And I asked folks there for their thoughts on the Iranian election. Who are you supporting?
I say Mousavi. I think probably it's a chance for him to just, to make some changes. We need some change. With 4 years with Ahmadinejad, he has some point, but I think he's just going too much for stuff that really doesn't make sense.
And what's Mousavi's background?
Mousavi was prime minister before, and Iranian, and he was teaching in a university art history and art. And I think his wife is an artist too. So they are very liberal. I received an email from Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, which is a film director, and he said he had a conversation with Mousavi, and Mousavi told Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, I disagree with your film, with your idea, but I can tolerate that.
One could argue that it's not a democratic process, but actually up until very recently, I would say about a couple of weeks ago, I was actually one of those people who was not going to vote at all. I think this is the argument that has been put forth by a lot of people, and I respect there are a lot of my friends and family who say, oh, you shouldn't vote because you're only giving credence to a system or a process that we all know is flawed, it's undemocratic. But I think we need to, as a nation, get away from this 0 or 100%. This dichotomy of either is completely perfect or is completely flawed.
So you're from Mousavi, why?
Yeah. Because I think he will probably make an attempt to make incremental or institute incremental changes in the right direction.
So there might be slight differences with regard to foreign policy, but those things are set by a different set of people and organizations and institutes within Iran. The president does not. That's not what the president does. It's not. The foreign policy is not part of his, agenda. The domestic policy is though the economics, and I think that's what you're going to see different, as well as the with regard to the moral police, social freedoms. That's what Mousavi I think is going to be different from Ahmadinejad. Civil liberties. NGOs being allowed to be active. Those are the differences, I think.
Look at the Middle East, the larger Middle East. Iran is probably the only country that has an anti-American, anti-West regime, but an extremely educated and pro-Western population. Juxtapose that with the rest of the countries in the region where the regimes are extremely pro-Western, pro-American, but the population, by and large, are anti-American and anti-West.
some of the voices of folks at a National Iranian American Council meeting in New York last week. Trita Parsi, we want to thank you for being with us, president of the NAIAC and author of Treacherous Alliance, The Secret Dealings of Iran, Israel, and the United States. We will certainly report on the outcome of these elections on Monday. As well, we will be talking about other issues. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Back in a minute.